At Sierra, you'll always find apparel, footwear, and gear for 20 to 60% less than department and specialty store prices. But right now, it's clearance time, so you can save even more on everything you need to get active and outside. Visit your local Sierra store today.
Hello, and welcome to It's a Fandom Thing. I'm your host, Erin Marlowe, and each week I'm joined by a panel of guests to discuss all things fandom and pop culture, primarily from a female perspective. You'll find everything from fanfic, to cosplay, to Schitt's Creek, to Supernatural, and everything in between. So put on your favorite piece of fandom merch, set aside that fanfic that you're writing about your OTP, and sit back and enjoy this week's episode. Hello, and welcome to It's a Fandom Thing. I'm your host, Erin Marlowe, and on this special episode, I'm going to call it a special episode. This was unplanned, but I'm excited to be talking about this movie. Carla is joining me to talk about Superman, the 2025 James Gunn Superman that just came out. So let me introduce Carla. Hello, Carla from OK Real Quick.
Hello, Erin. It's a pleasure to be back.
Thank you for being here and filling in. This was a last minute substitution for Severance. Was supposed to be the one we were going to be covering to close out August, but we are still going to cover Severance. It's just going to be just a Patreon bonus episode in September to celebrate the Emmys coming out. So become a Patreon supporter for as little as $3 a month, and you can hear that and other great bonus content. But we are going to talk about Superman 2025, as I've said 100 times now. And we're going to be spoiling this movie. So if you have not seen this movie, pause this and go and watch it. It's on streaming right now. I'm sure it's still in some movie theaters out there. I think this is one of the ones that benefits to see on a big screen because it is a Superman movie. But yeah, so go and watch it and then come back and listen to us talk about it. So I'm going to first give you the IMDb description, cast info, and I do think this movie deserves some trigger warnings. So first up, the most generic IMDb description is Superman must reconcile his alien Kryptonian heritage with his human upbringing as reporter Clark Kent. As the embodiment of truth, justice, and the human way, he soon finds himself in a world that views these as old-fashioned. I mean, it fits the movie. I don't know. It was written and directed by James Gunn. It stars David Cornsweet as Superman/Clark Kent, Rachel Brosnahan as Lois Lane, Nicholas Hoult as Lex Luthor, and then the next person they credit on here, which I would not put this in the order IMDb does, is Alan Tudyk as Gary. I love Alan Tudyk. I'm not saying it against him. And then Grace Chan as Superman Robot number 12.
Oh my God.
So you were way up there. And then it puts like Bradley Cooper, as Superman's dad next. And I'm like, I don't know. I just don't like the order of this. So I know I'm going to forget people. I'm just trying to get to some of these. So I apologize. I know I will forget a bunch of people because this is so laid out, so weird that it's making it annoying for me. I'm just shouting him out because both Carla and I love him. Michael Ian Black as basically like a Fox News type host. When I saw this in the theaters, I saw it by myself. And I remember when Michael Ian Black came on, I was like, I don't want to spoil this for Carla, but I'm so tempted to tell Carla. But I didn't want to spoil it. I saw him
and I immediately thought of you. I was like, oh my God.
See,
I was like, no wonder Erin liked this movie.
I immediately thought of you. So,
he's one of our connections.
The great Wendell Pierce as Perry White. Skylar Gisondo as Jimmy Olsen, who is wanted by every hot woman in the world, apparently. Okay. I'm not saying he's not a cutie pie, but he's like a cutie pie. He's like a cutie pie. And then way down on here is, and I just looked up how to pronounce your last name, Eddie Gothi. Oh my God, I think I'm mispronouncing it again. I apologize, but I looked this up like right before we started. I played it like 5 times in a row, and then I wrote it down all weird. So Eddie Gothi as Mr. Terrific, Nathan Fillion, whatever, as Guy Gardner. I'm sorry. Isabella Merced as Hawk Girl, which I want to say I never had heard of Hawk Girl or Mr. Terrific. I knew who Guy Gardner was, but I had never heard of those two characters.
Me neither. Well, actually, Hot Girl I had.
Oh, really? See, I hadn't heard of Hot Girl, so I was not Hot Girl. I'm sorry, that's not like Hot Girl.
I mean, for somebody, she might be.
Yeah. Now that I've gotten through that, I apologize. That was horrible. Maybe I'll record that separately. So, trigger warnings. Well, this does deal with xenophobia, racism, genocide, war, but genocide is part of that.
Animal endangerment.
Yes.
Yeah. By which I mean animals endangering humans, not the other way around. No, kidding. Although maybe both.
Yeah. Oh, I love that dog. You should read, that's the dog in here is inspired by James Gunn's. I mean, it's part of the, comic universe, but they modeled him after James Gunn's dog, one of his dogs that he adopted, who I guess is a horrible, bad dog. And so it's really entertaining. And James Gunn he's on TikTok and he's posted some videos of his dog watching the dog. And it's really adorable.
Would you say that he's not a good boy? Coming soon to theaters or Shudder at least?
The counter to good boy. He's like, come on, get my humans. I don't care. So we are going to start out with something very simple and easy to answer. So on a scale of 1 to 5 cryptos, Superman doggies, Superman doggos, what do you give Superman?
Okay. I wanted to give it 4.5, but I don't like the idea of giving a half dog. So I'm going to have to go with 4 because I just feel really, really icky saying 4.5. Just imagine that if it were like, I don't know, like little Orby devices that Mr. Terrific used, I would use 4.5 little Orby devices. But like if we're talking about cryptos, then we're doing 4 cryptos, even though I mean 4.5. Just go with me on that.
You can blame me because I'm the one who gave the dog as a rating.
No animals were harmed in the making of this podcast, except only a little bit in our imagination.
I'd be curious, though, would it be the front half or the back half?
The back half.
That makes sense, yeah. I also give it 4. And it's not because of the half thing. I do give it 4. This is a movie that actually has grown upon me because I saw it in the theater and I was like, oh, that's entertaining. I'll probably forget about it. And I didn't. And then also, I have to say, this is a movie that watching TikTok analysis of and everything made me appreciate it even more. And yeah, so I give it a 4. I give it 4 of those bad boy cryptos. I love that dog, though. That dog is amazing. He'd be a pain in the ass.
He's not a good dog, but he is a dog. He's a super dog, not a super good dog.
Yeah. Okay, well, what I want to know, Carla, because I have no idea, because we've never talked about this ever, but what is your relationship with the Superman character, and how well does this depiction of Superman work for you?
You know something funny? When I started thinking about it, because I saw the question, and I thought to myself, well, like I'm just a very casual superhero, anything in general. So, like, I guess I'm just like tangentially interested in Superman. But then when I started sitting down to think about Superman and, going back to the lore and to the plot of the previous movies, I was like, I'm actually way more into Superman than I remember, because there's actually a time in my life that I was very into comics, and I was very into Superman and in the story of Superman and, the Christopher Reeve version and the comics themselves. And I had made it a point to look into the lore of the origin of the superhero in general and Superman specifically. And then in reading further and looking at videos about just Superman stuff, I was like, oh, I know a lot more than I thought I did. So I guess to make the answer shorter, I guess I'm very into Superman, and I just didn't realize it until this week.
You found out a secret little thing about yourself. Now you're going to start collecting Superman stuff.
Like, I sincerely thought that I was like, oh, whatever, it's just some silly superhero. But then I remember so many times that I was like really into Superman and that I would get like really upset about stuff like that's not something Superman would do. Like, that's ridiculous. And I had forgotten that the reason I didn't watch Smallville is because Lois and Superman, Lois and Clark, the New Adventures of Superman had ended not too long before that came out. And I was really salty about them revisiting the Superman story so soon after that. And it not having Lois Lane, which wouldn't have made any sense because he doesn't meet her until later. Not the point. Point is, like, I had clearly some very strong opinions.
So then how does this Superman, how does this story, but also just David Cornsweet in general, work for you as Superman?
Oh my gosh. I am always leery of reboots and recasts and whatever, but I think he was pretty much the perfect choice to play Superman. And you know what? Like, Brendan Routh, when he was Superman, I think that he was very good. I think he was a great choice. I think he was just in a really crappy movie. And I think that it wasn't a failure on him. But I think that this particular actor really captures what Superman is really about. He's not supposed to be some brooding superhero. He's not supposed to be super naive. He's supposed to be like right down the middle. The whole point of Superman is that, yes, he is super, but at the core of it, he's a man. He's just a dude. And we get to see him be annoying. We get to see him be a jerk. We get to see him be weirdly defensive, but we also get to see him be loving and sweet and scared and embarrassed, like all of these, the whole range of emotions. And that's why I really do like this movie a lot. That's why I rated it so highly, because I think it really does capture what Superman is supposed to be about. I think that part of the reason that the Zack Snyder version of Superman doesn't work is that it tries to make Superman like this like dark, complicated person, but it goes about it in a very dystopian way. And that's not what this guy is about. Like, the comic is colorful for a reason, like it's suffused with hope and love and joy. And Zack Snyder really took that out of the world of Superman, and so it doesn't make any sense. And this really refreshed the world of Superman in a way that I think makes a lot of sense. And I think that they made some amazing casting choices.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting when you mentioned Lois and Clark, which, putting aside the horrible, awful person who played Superman in that.
Yeah.
Who, just a reminder, I was an extra on a film he did, and we were told by the assistant director not to acknowledge Dean Cain or look at him or shout his name. And 99% of the people on that set had no idea who he was. So, but anyway, it's funny because I also found this an odd question for myself too, because I was like, well, I really wasn't into Superman, but that's not true at all. Like you said, I was never a comic person, but I loved the Christopher Reeve Superman. Yeah. I grew up with that. And that was like a big, huge part of my childhood and memory. And it was like one of the first film ships that I had was Lois Lane and Clark Kent and Lois Lane and Superman. And I loved how feisty is just the first word that came to mind for Lois Lane, how Lois Lane was, and how Lois Lane wasn't as impressed with all these things that other women might have been impressed with. And I just really enjoyed that. And I enjoyed Superman's dynamic with her. And I thought Christopher Reeve did a great job. And so I really loved those movies so much. And I loved Lois and Clark as well. And so I think because I had those two things that were like part of my life growing up, I could not get behind a lot of what was done with Superman. And I never watched Smallville either. And I think a lot of the reason I didn't watch Smallville is the same reason that Carla didn't watch Smallville. So, and it never really interested me. And so then I was like, well, I don't really care about this character, but I think it's just because I had that character in my mind as a certain kind of superhero where he's really, and I mean that as this is a compliment, he is a big dork. He is like such a dork. And he's kind. He's not nice. He's kind. There's a big difference between nice and kind. And he is a kind man. He's a kind being. He's a kind human being and who feels like an outcast and wants to just wants desperately to be just a regular, everyday human being, you know, but he happens to have superpowers. So, you know, the scene in here when he rescues the squirrel is like, it's the most Superman thing you will see Superman do because it's like no other superhero that I can think of would take the time to rescue a little tiny squirrel.
I mean, most superheroes are out there like demolishing buildings, and this guy's actively like, oh, no.
Rescue. And that just gets to the heart of who Superman is, because Superman is very empathetic. And yeah, I think he can be naive at times, but he just wants so badly to believe in human goodness and kindness. And he wants to give everybody a chance. And that's why, like, he has a thing of not killing people. And I think what ended up happening, and I think a lot of it, even though I love the Christopher Nolan Batman universe, I think what happened is Batman was so dark, and then DC was like, well, every superhero in our universe has to be dark now. And that doesn't have to be the case. And granted, I prefer dark and brooding to, you know, like, I hate Captain America. So, like, as I've established, I know many of you hate me for that, but I'm sorry, it's true. But to me, Superman is like it's like what Captain America wishes he was. Captain America is playing, in my opinion, at being this wonderful, kind human being. And I think Superman is just innately this kind man. He just is. And yeah, I mean, he's not perfect at all, which is part of why you love him. But I really love this version of Superman because this is the version of Superman that I grew up with. And I think this is the most accurate to who Superman is. And I don't think that was around for a long time. And so I think the reason this movie is being embraced the way it is because it's a return to form for the Superman that, you know, the world knows and loves. You know, it's really nice to see. So I really enjoyed this version. And I thought David did a really good job in this role. And I thought he did a good job as Clark Kent as well.
Yeah.
You know, and I liked because it's always that thing where you're like, well, come on. No way. How could anyone not know who is who? But then the explanation of with the glasses, it makes him look different. And to everybody else except for Lois Lane knows who he is. And I also want to say I appreciate that they started this with Lois and him together and not like it was a will they, won't they thing. I really appreciated that.
I'll talk more about that later, but I was like, yeah.
But yeah, so I thought they did a good job. Way to go, James Gunn. I still not think of him because I was rewatching. He was one of the first judges on I think it was the first season that he was on the first season of this reality show called Screen Queens, where, you know, and he was the judge on there, really young James Gunn. And I just, you know, some of the things he did in that season, I mean, some of the things that show did was like, like, so not like, oh my gosh, this was definitely VH1 back in the early 2000s. Anyway, so we are going to go ahead and take a quick break. And when we get back, we're going to talk about the other characters and who our other favorite was. So we'll be right back.
Jack Daniels is proudly served in fine establishments, questionable joints, and everywhere in between. So, no matter where you go, in every bar, you'll always know someone by name.
Jack. Jack and Coke?
Shot of Jack?
Jack Daniels, please.
Right away.
That's what makes Jack, Jack.
Please drink responsibly. Responsibility.org. Jack Daniels and Old No. 7 are registered trademarks. Copyright 2025 Jack Daniels. Tennessee whiskey. 40% alcohol by volume. 80 proof.
Okay, Carla, I already know who your other favorite was, but I'm going to let you tell everybody. But what are your thoughts or your favorite? I shouldn't say other favorite, your favorite.
So one and only.
What are your overall thoughts on all the other characters? Because there are a lot of people in this, but all the other characters, and who is your favorite?
There's so many good characters. And the reason that they're good characters is that they really capture the spirit of who the characters are supposed to be. So Lois Lane is supposed to be smart, and she's supposed to be dogged and relentless. And I like that because, like, she's also supposed to be, helpless. And I'm very glad that they didn't go that route, because if that's one thing where I accept revisionism, it's in improving representation for marginalized and minority groups. And certainly with Lois, she's a woman. And I like that they didn't make her a damsel in distress. She's somebody who, in the end, ends up rescuing Superman. And it's not like, oh, she went and she kind of helped him. Like, she pursued people who could help him because she couldn't do the super things that needed to be done to help him. And she was relentless in pursuing assistance. She was in grave peril, but didn't give up and didn't cower in a corner. She did everything she could to help him and thus to help humanity. And I also like it when they interpret Lois Lane as somebody who is not fussy. Like, I feel like often women who have some kind of like hard edge are made to be fussy in some other way. It's like they're made to be neurotic. And that can work for some characters, but I don't think it needs to be that way for Lois Lane. I think that she can be hard-headed and level-headed. I don't know why the two would be mutually exclusive, but I really enjoy that. I also like that she's not pining for him in the sense that, like, she's like, oh, Superman, oh, Clark, oh, if only he would come to my window. Like, she's like, I don't know that I like you that much. She's like, you're hot and all of that. The sex is great, but I don't know that I want you around for the long term, man. Like, that's not my vibe. In a way, like, they kind of lean a little too heavy in that direction. But I also think that the reason that I'm okay with that is that the actress herself doesn't make it heavy-handed, where I think that direction wanted it to be more heavy-handed than it was. But I do appreciate what it did with the role. I did not appreciate the wardrobe. I did not understand the shoes and the capris or the rolled up pants. Why? It's 2025. Why are we doing this to women? But yeah, I really liked her a lot. I love Jimmy Olsen. Like, I think people can often get Jimmy Olsen wrong because they make him just very, like, wee and cowardly and like, oh, Mr. Kent. And he's like a reluctant assistant. And he's like, okay, I'll throw myself in the grenade and I'll, tell this hot girl she can go out with me, I guess. Like, I guess I'll do that. I'll take one for the team. But, and that's another thing that I enjoyed, that it's not like he's lusting after this vapid, hot woman. He's just like, she's not really my vibe, but, like, I'll butter her up to get the information that we need. And I liked her a lot. I thought she was amazing. Eve, right?
Yes. I'm sorry I didn't give the actress's name because I was doing my scrolling weird thing.
Oh, yeah, no, Sarah Sampaio.
Mm-hmm.
I really, really liked her because, yes, she is vapid. Yes, she is like influencer, beauty, whatever. But she's also using that as her cover to take pictures of sensitive data because she knows that what Lex is doing is wrong. She just doesn't know what to do about it. And she doesn't feel like I feel like Eve is actually pretty deep because she doesn't like the way that Lex treats her. She doesn't like what Lex is doing, but I don't think that she feels like she deserves anything better because she's also throwing herself at Jimmy. She's throwing herself at him, but the fact that he rebuffs her she doesn't understand why, it's like, I can't be with the guy that is going to treat me right. So I'm going to stay with the guy who's going to treat me poorly, but at least will acknowledge my existence. And I feel like that's true, honestly, for a lot of people, not just hot women, but I feel like it's true for a lot of people that they're like, I just want somebody to know that I'm there. Anyway, like, again, I'm like entirely too into how Eve could be an avatar for women with low self-esteem. I need to move on, otherwise I'll talk about her all night. Because she's legit, like, really interesting. I think that I forget what the group is called, what are they called? Like
oh my gosh. I love how it's thought of as so stupid, except for...
Yeah. The trio of Justicieros, led by Nathan Fillion as Green Lantern, they're a hoot. Like, as an ensemble, as a little group, they're hilarious because they come in to save the day, but they're led by this very pompous, self-involved guy who just is there for the photo op mostly. But it turns out that they actually are good people. They're just scared to do the right thing because then that exposes them, which is very understandable. And it's when we talk a little bit more about how it parallels real life, I'll get into it more. But like, I think that it really mirrors the way that the Justice Gang, thank you, Erin, the Justice Gang, it's a terrible name.
It is a terrible name. I agree with Mr. Fantastic. It's horrible.
Yes. So they're reluctant and they're like, I don't really want to get involved, but they end up getting involved because they end up realizing like, no, we really have to. Hawkgirl is just like, she doesn't get enough lines. That's one complaint that I have. Like, I feel like other than Lois and Eve, the women in the movie do not get enough lines. There's not like parody there. And that bothers me. But what I liked about her is that she just doesn't care. Like, she's like, I just want to screech all day, man. Like, I just want to fly in and screech and just, that's my thing. And I don't get to do it enough, which fair. Lex Luthor, Nicholas Hoult is amazing. He is so good. And the thing is, like, he's good in pretty much every role that I've seen him in from the time that he was in About a Boy. Like, he's just so good. And he really like digs into the meat of his characters, which is especially funny when you think about the movie Warm Bodies, where he was a zombie. But if you want to talk about digging into the meat of a character,
that was so good.
But as Lex, he really embodies that small-minded, xenophobic, this land is my land and my land only person, which is what we see so much today. And the idea that his hatred for anybody that he considers to be other is so naked. It's like there's no real subtlety to it. It's just there. And he also very well represents rich people, and particularly billionaires who don't care about anybody else. They're happy to make their monies off the blood of people who deserve better. And then we're going to talk about my favorite, Mr. Terrific. Mr. Terrific is terrific. I mean, like, there's no other way to put it. He's just terrific. That's why they call him that. When I first saw him on the screen, I was like, oh no, because he's a black guy. And I'm like, great. He's going to have a few quippy things. He's going to be like the character in the Justice Gang with the fewest lines. He may or may not get blown up. Like, it's kind of exhausting to be a person of color in the United States and watching movies made in the United States, because it's just, unless it's made by a person of color, the writing is always iffy. The characterization or the direction of it is always iffy. But I think that they did a really good job, because they didn't, the movie doesn't present him as dependent on the Justice Gang. Like, it's not like he will only do the things that Green Lantern will allow him to do. And he's not following anybody's orders or lead. He thinks for himself, and he has his own agenda. And his own agenda is like, I want to assist in this way. and this is what I can do. This is what I can contribute. He is brilliant. He's brilliant in the way that Lex Luthor thinks he's brilliant. Because Lex thinks that because he has ideas that work and he can pay people to execute them, that makes him smarter than everybody else. And that, of course, is his downfall. But Mr. Terrific is genuinely brilliant, and he is also thoughtful because he is desperate to close that seam and to not let the shadow realm, or whatever it's called, the shadow, I forget what it's called, the thingy that splits the world. He's desperate to not let that wreck the planet. And I just appreciate the way that the character was handled. And of course, it helps that this is the actor who played a character who was supposed to be indestructible in another superhero movie, and he was destroyed. And because he, disposable black guy, so it's like, you can go, you're supposed to be indestructible, but we don't care about canon. And James Gunn actually brought him in specifically because he liked him so much. And he was reluctant to come into the role because he's like, I've gone through this before. I don't want to do superhero stuff anymore because of how things went down last time. But as we can see, things developed in a much better way for his character. And I look forward to seeing, what else might happen in the future. I wouldn't be mad at a spinoff, by the way. I wouldn't be mad at a solo movie for him, because I would love to see everything that he can do, because he clearly has, the actor does, he clearly has depth, and he clearly has an interpretation of Mr. Terrific that is, I think, like, very well thought out, and he really inhabits that role. It doesn't feel like somebody playing superheroes. It feels like a real person doing superhero things. And he has cool gadgets, which is always fun.
He does have really cool gadgets, right?
I think that just the casting in this movie was so good. I was really surprised at how much I enjoyed it. And I went to see it, honestly, because, like, during the summer, it's been a rough summer for movie going for me. I haven't been able to take full advantage of my Regal Ultimate Pass, or whatever the hell it's called. So I didn't get to see movies for the past 2 months. So I've been trying to watch every movie this month because I'm making up for the last 2 months. I'm like, I'm getting my money's worth, damn it. Superman just happened to be playing at a time that was convenient for me, so I went to watch it just because. And I'm so glad that I did, because it brought me back to this world that I had been put off of by recent developments and the way that it's been handled. But yeah, I was so pleasantly surprised by the performances and by the characterizations.
Yeah, I agree with everything you've said. Going to the Lois Lane character, I've always been a fan of this character anyway, but I really appreciated this interpretation, and especially the fact that she saves Superman. And I so appreciate that Superman was never like, you're not supposed to save me kind of crap.
Right, yeah.
Which actually wouldn't have been part of who Superman is anyway, but I'm just glad they didn't do that. And I thought that Rachel Brosnahan did a really great job. I'd never watched her show. What was that television show she was on? That show that everybody loved. I'm going to her name right now on IMDb.
Oh, Miss Maisel?
Yeah, The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. Yeah, I never watched that, but I know that she has a huge fan base from that show mainly. But I thought she did a great job. I thought she had great chemistry with David as well. And, it's funny because there was something that went around, and it was like a little, like, basically a meme of her coming home and Clark Kent is there, and Lois Lane comes home and they're like, what would you do in this scenario? And this one woman's like, this is the stupidest question you've ever asked. What do you think you would do?
Greet him cordially, ask him whether he would want some water.
Yeah.
And then show him his way out. Like, duh.
It was funny, but
some hot guys in your kitchen cooking for you. Like, oh.
Yeah. I appreciated her independence. I do understand totally what you're saying, though, because I think sometimes when people are portraying and writing women, especially men writing women, and if you're writing a female character that is very independent and very, like, punk rock is how she kind of describes herself.
Yeah.
When you're writing a character like that, the first instinct is always to write them not wanting to fall in love.
Yeah.
Not wanting to let their guard down. And she's in love with him, but she doesn't want to let her guard down and say that. She does in the end, of course, but she doesn't want to let him know that. And so there is a tendency to write that. And that is kind of a tired old trope, because just because you are that kind of person doesn't mean you have a hard time falling in love or showing that. Those don't go hand in hand necessarily. You don't have to be some silly Hallmark character to fall in love. You can be a punk rock person and fall in love.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So I totally agree with what you're saying there. And yeah, Jimmy Olsen is kind of like, Jimmy Olsen can either be really forgettable or a fun, enjoyable character. And I call him adorable because I think the actor who plays him is just kind of this adorable little guy. I've just always thought of that. I've watched quite a few things that he's been in, and I think he's really fun and interesting to watch. He kind of reminds me in a way of Justin Long. There's something about the way he carries himself. Like if this was made back when Justin Long was younger, I could see Justin Long in this role, that kind of thing. And so I enjoyed that, especially, with Eve. Eve is a very interesting character because I do appreciate the fact that on the surface, Eve is supposed to be that ditzy blonde Instagram person and just there basically as arm candy for Lex. And I appreciate that in the end, she's one of the smartest people in the movie because she's using that and using the fact that people think she's dumb to her advantage. She was able to get away with so much because people looked at her as being stupid. And so I appreciated that. And I do agree with you. I do think she has very low self-esteem. And it's interesting to look at that through a character that is objectively on the surface a very attractive human being. And then to have them have that low self-esteem and low self-confidence is a really interesting way to depict that kind of character. And it is someone that actually you could do a whole separate episode talking about that. And so I liked that she wasn't like arm candy for Lex and then was going along with everything he said. She actually didn't even like Lex at all. And I really appreciated that a lot. I appreciated that she liked this goofy guy, who also really didn't even understand how goofy he was. That's another reason I kind of like Jimmy is he has no idea that he's kind of this goofball, and I mean that as a compliment.
No, I agree. I like that about him, that because he's not like the simpering little guy like, oh, I get to be with the adults now. It's like he's pulling his weight and he knows that he's pulling his weight.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. Nicholas Hoult. I adore Nicholas Hoult for forever. I will always love this man. He is one of the most reliable actors around, but he also needs to get more credit for how amazing he is. He is such a good actor. He can go from playing a character that you just want to cuddle up with or you just think is so much fun and really warm and sweet, like in Renfield, say, and then a character like his character in The Menu that is just a complete and utter piece of shit. And he does it all so well. And he just is a great character actor. And I think character actors are the best actors around. He can play anybody. And he's so natural at it. And he never comes across as egotistical in any role he takes. And this is an egotistical piece of shit character.
Yeah.
But he does it in such a way that I'm not saying he likes the character at all. I'm just saying that in order to play a character like this, the actor has to at least find a little semblance of a human being there in order to play it in a successful way where all of that hatred and xenophobia and disgustingness comes across well, where you can see all of it as this insecure little boy is really what it is. And he gets that across so well.
It reminds me of Mark Sheppard because Mark Sheppard had said at some point that, he plays villains really well. And he said that the key to that is to see it from their perspective as if they think that they're doing the right thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that's something that Nicholas Hoult does really well. Like he sees things from his character's point of view and portrays that. And yeah, that's the key to pretty much everything is like genuinely believing your character.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, they always say, like, you have to find a way inside the character of any character. The actor has to find a way inside the character and to find some kind of bit of humanity inside a character, even if it feels like there's nothing in there that you can connect to. It doesn't mean you approve of who they are or what they are, but in order to play them realistically where it doesn't come off like a cartoon villain, you have to find your way in there. And I think he does a really, really good job. I think he's a really good Lex Luthor. I think he's one of the best I've seen. And that's character's been played by so many actors. So that's a hard role to take on. All of these are hard roles to take on because they're classics, but I think that's one of the more difficult ones, frankly. And then just real quickly, I'll get out of the way. The character that I really hate in this movie, honestly, is and I'm not talking about because I mean, yes, the characters I hate are like the Moravian general. I hate him, of course, because he's committing genocide. But I mean, hate, is annoying and stupid is Nathan Fillion's version of Guy Gardner. I actually found him absolutely repulsive and very hard to watch. He was like nails on a chalkboard. And I was so glad that out of the 3 in the Justice Gang, that it was Mr. Terrific that got the spotlight, because I really think in general, it would have been Guy Gardner is who most directors and most studios and most everybody would have wanted to give the highlight to, because that is a very familiar character for people. And also Nathan Fillion is known in the whole world of comic books and geekdom and everything like that. And so it would have been very easy and very lazy, frankly, to have made him the one that, say, Lois Lane goes to, or that helps Lois Lane rescue Superman. That would have been the easy way to do it. And so I'm really glad they didn't do that and that they went with Mr. Terrific, because I too really, really love Mr. Terrific. And I would say Mr. Terrific would probably be my favorite too, because what I also love about this character is that he's not and I think this is a thing with DC Comics, frankly, compared to Marvel, is he's not all gung-ho, we are superheroes, let's save the day. And I really appreciate when superheroes are like that, when they're not always gung-ho. I mean, I think Superman is, but that's kind of fitting with who Superman is. But I appreciate when superheroes are kind of is this really as important to do this right now? Or do we really care about, this aspect of it? Or are you just going to let us do all the hard work while you do nothing? That kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so I appreciate that about this character. I think the performance is really, really good. And I do encourage everyone to watch lots of interviews with him and how important it was for him playing this character and for this kind of the portrayal and what it meant to him to play this character. And I'm sure we'll see lots of Halloween costumes this year too. We'll probably see a Justice Gang people out there too. It's the stupidest flippin' name. It really is the stupidest name. It just sounds like something little kids came up with, and they're like, it does.
Oh my God. And that's why, oh my God, when Metamorpho was like, that's a really cool name.
I know.
Bro.
And the look on Mr. Terrific and Hawk Girl's face is like, fuck, now we're stuck with this name. But yeah, I think Mr. Terrific is fantastic. And like I said, I wasn't familiar with this character, so I appreciated getting to know a new superhero. And I had no idea there would be other superheroes in this movie. So I liked that it wasn't it didn't feel cheap and gimmicky. Yeah. And so I appreciated that. And Hawk Girl was another one I wasn't familiar with. And I really liked her too. I do agree there wasn't enough of her. This is very much, even though I think this movie does a lot of really great, wonderful things and the casting is great. And I love the messaging, and we'll be getting to that next, the political messaging and how it's using a superhero platform to talk about very real issues. I appreciated that a lot, but I do think you can tell this was written by a man. And so it was just okay, I've got, really 4 4 female main characters here, and I can only give so much to each one. So I am going to give the least to Hawk Girl. I'm going to be like, I'm just going to choose one of these 3 to give the most to. And I'm just going to give a little bit to her. She'll be kind of like a side character. And, it kind of, to me, is telling that it was written by a white man. I mean, really.
Yes.
I mean, that's a very obvious thing there. I do like Superman's human parents. I thought they're kind of just there, but I still really liked them, and they fit with kind of how you feel like Superman grew up. And I love that in the end, when he wants to look at things to calm him down, that it's his parents that raised him and not the parents that sent him to Earth. I really appreciated that, because James Gunn has been very clear that that's not a doctored video that you hear from. And he's like, I thought it was made clear. Everybody keeps asking me, that was doctored though, right? And he's like, no, I thought I made it perfectly clear in the movie. It's not doctored. And that's why it's so important that in the end, he's not watching his birth parents. He is watching the parents that raised him. So, yeah. So I liked them too. Yeah. Overall, I thought really, really great characters. Overall, like I said, Nathan Fillion, I could have done without, but I think it's just I have such a bad taste for that man now after hearing how he's not a good person in real life. And like he's kind of a rude asshole. So it's kind of soured me.
It's tainted so many things.
I know. It's so annoying because I used to really love watching him. And then you're like, wait, is this ego in this character just you?
Well, that's why, I bullied Meg into watching The Rookie. Mm-hmm. And he's the supposedly the lead character, but nobody really cares about him anymore in the show. And he plays somebody who is like just so good, like such a good person. And I'm like, is this just like his ego being like, I want to play the embodiment of like an amazing person because I really feel that it comes from my heart. I'm like, bro. I'm saying bro a lot now. This is my child's fault. My child's a middle schooler and everything's bro.
Yeah. On the flip side, sorry, this is totally a tangent, but I shared it with Paula because Paula and I love Billy Zane so much. And I was reading this Reddit thread of like horrible celebrity encounters. Okay. According to a bunch of people, Tommy Lee Jones is a horrible person.
Oh,
supposedly. Yeah. That doesn't shock me at all. Some of the stories were horrible though, but this one person was sharing this horrible interaction they allegedly had with Dennis Hopper. And then they said, but on the flip side, I have this long story about these interactions with Billy Zane. And then all these people were replying and saying, yeah, Billy Zane is the nicest person I've ever met. Billy Zane did this. This one guy who worked in a movie theater said, I was just the usher at the movie theater and Billy Zane like tipped me when he left the movie theater.
Gosh.
And he's like, I still have that tip. I'm never going to spend it. And like this one woman was like, I was at a concert and I turned around. I didn't even mean to blurt out. And I went, oh my God, it's Billy Zane. And he's like, yes. He's like, I have some nachos. Do you want to share some nachos with me?
Oh my God, what a sweetheart.
And she was like, I was too dumbstruck to even say anything, so I didn't share them. And then like the person who posted the thing about Dennis Hopper said, okay, here's my long story. He was like in a band or something and has made like merch for his band or something. And Billy Zane came up and he's like, I heard you made this stuff. And it's like, yeah. And they're like, yeah, I made this stuff. And he's like, well, I'd like one. And he's like, well, and the person was like, well, what would you like? And Billy Zane's like, well, I'll take one of each. And then
wow.
And then like stayed there and talked to all of them and was just very kind. And then like came back the next day and helped like basically be a roadie for them. Like,
oh my God, what?
I know.
I love that weird, goofy guy.
I know. I'm like, and then someone who's like, I lived next to him for years. I lived next door to him and he was the nicest person in the world. I was like, that is so nice to hear because I love him and he's so weird. He is so flippin' weird. And I mean that, of course, as the highest compliment. And so it's just so nice to hear that he's a good person. So,
yeah.
Anyway, sorry, that was a tangent, but I was just thinking that because Nathan Fillion is not supposedly. And
Yes.
so it's
The
nice to
antithesis
hear.
of Billy Zane.
Yeah. So we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we are going to be talking about why it's so important that a film like this is talking about important political issues. So we'll be right back.
Introducing the perfect companion to your morning listening routine. AG1's clinically backed formula is now flavor-packed with 3 new delicious flavors: tropical, berry, and citrus. Start the day on a high note with probiotics that taste like the tropics. Mix it up with micronutrients that taste like berry or citrus. And take it all the way back with the classic AG1 Original with notes of pineapple and vanilla. Do your health a flavor, or 4, with AG1 Next Gen, the daily health drink. Learn more at drinkag1.com.
Prime delivery is fast. How fast are we talking? We're talking puzzle toys and lickpad delivered so fast you can get this puppy under control fast. We're talking chew toys at your door without really waiting fast. Pee pads, cooling mat, and peg hammer fast and fast. And there's training TREATS faster than you can say sit fast. And now we can all relax and order these matching hoodies to get cozy and cute fast. Fast free delivery. It's on Prime.
Okay, so Carla, why is it so important for a film like this to talk about important political issues, like the fact that this is talking about immigration, it's talking about the genocide? It is very clearly, in my opinion, very clearly a pro-Palestine movie and a pro-Palestinian message. And why do you think that's so important, and how well do you think the film does with that?
This is a movie that, just because of what it is and who was making it, was always going to get a lot of attention. Whether or not people ended up liking it, whatever critics ended up thinking, it was always going to get a lot of attention. It was always going to make a lot of money at the box office. I think generally you really, really have to work hard to screw up a superhero movie when you have that kind of budget and when you have studio backing like James Gunn had. So all of the choices that were made in it were very deliberate and not very subtle, which is good. I generally am a fan of subtle, but I think in this case you need to be unsubtle because you need to re-educate people. And I think that's one of the things that we talk about with art is that you learn a lot through art. If we are deprived of art, we are deprived of access to points of view from people who really care about humanity. I mean, like, there's a reason why the arts, it's part of the humanities. It's like, STEM without the A in STEAM is just cold calculation. Anyway, back to the point. The reason that it's important that this was that these choices were made so deliberately is that we are in a political climate and in a time in the world's history where there are a lot of people who are scared to say the difficult thing and who are scared to stand up for the people who need to be stood up for. And what I was saying before about the Justice Gang and how Hawkgirl and Green Lantern were reluctant but eventually said the things that needed to be said and stepped in to help the people who needed help, that's incredibly important, and it's also very relevant because there are a lot of people who needed a lot of convincing about the fact that this is not a thing where it's like, well, I need to really sit back and, look at both sides. It's like, there's no both siding a genocide. There's no both siding a genocide. People are being killed for who they are. There is an attempt, a very active, very explicitly worded attempt to exterminate a people. And the fact that somebody with the clout that James Gunn has, with the financial backing that he has to make a project like this, put forth something so bold and so unsubtle about where he stands on these issues, I think is just terribly important. It's also something that is very accessible because the Superman story just by itself is an accessible story. It's a very simple story. Alien comes to Earth, turns out he has superpowers, and he uses them for good. And the thing that was always quoted is like truth, justice, and the American way. And now it's truth, justice, and the human way. I think it's a very important distinction because the American way is no longer the human way, if it ever was, because it wasn't. It's always, the American way has always been, and I'm speaking specifically about the U.S. because America is much more vast than just the United States, but in the way that people perceive it as the American thing, it's always been founded on the extermination of people. And I think that this is like a recognition of that, stepping away from it being the American way. I think it's a recognition of the United States having lost its standing as any kind of moral authority in the world. The fact that the United States is continuing to support and fund a genocide and arm a genocide is unquestionable. It's very clear and it's undeniable. And this is a movie that little kids are going to see with their parents. And no matter how their parents feel about it, I believe that they're going to take away the idea that, oh, Superman really cares about these people. He really cares about these brown people who are about to be exterminated. And he cares about the whole world and he cares about everybody. The way that the Lex Luthor tortured him is by killing a brown man who did him a kindness. And I think that it was so hard to watch because on the one hand, you're like, this is just unnecessary. And it's a really disgusting way to simplify a very complex issue. But at the same time, sometimes people need the simplification. I think it would have been in poorer taste in a different movie. But because, again, you're marketing this a lot to kids who need to have that be the thing that they see so that they can walk away from it thinking, wow, we should never do this to somebody. We should never we should never put somebody in that position for the sake of making a point. And the point being, we don't want you here. Because especially in that confrontation that Superman and Lex have, where it's strictly xenophobia, and he's like, you don't belong here. This is our planet. You need to basically go back to where you came from is kind of the underlying message of anything Lex Luthor says throughout the whole movie. And this is something that is being blasted all over the country right now. It's go back to where you came from, or we'll send you not to where you came from, but to where it'll make you the most miserable. We're going to tear you away from your family and not only not take you back to some place that is in some way tied to you, we're going to send you to a place where you are going to wish you had never been born. And that's the world that Lex Luthor endorses pretty much. And that's just for, Metropolis and for the country and all of that. But then the movie takes it a step farther because with the invasion that he is helping with of a country that parallels Palestine, this is clearly the U.S. and Israel taking over Palestine, what's left of it after the Nakba, because this isn't new. It's not like Israel just started invading Palestine. Israel was built on Palestine by pushing out the people of Palestine and segregating them, splitting them up so that they can either live on the Gaza Strip or they can live in the West Bank, and everything else in the middle will be Israel, and you will not be allowed to leave your section without going through a lot of things. I think people need to go and watch the show Mo. I believe it was on Netflix. It's about a Palestinian American, and there's a section where in season 1, where his uncle goes to Palestine to visit family, and he's treated awfully by the Israeli military police. And there's a little boy who is killed for something very innocuous. But that's pretty much, and this is before the current push for the genocide. Like, this is before October 7th of 2023. So if you look at the history of Palestine and of how Israel was founded and how it's putting fair-skinned people on land inhabited by brown people, there's also racism tied into it. you have Israel deporting Jews because they're the wrong color of Jew. They're Black Jews, and they're being deported. So everything comes down to white supremacy, racism, to xenophobia. And the reason that I think Superman is the right vehicle for bringing in the message that this is wrong, and that we need to do what we can to put a stop to it in whatever small way we can, is because of how Superman came about. Superman is a superhero that was created by Jewish men who, and this is like before the Nakba even, who was created to just be somebody who's a defender of the weak. That was Superman's purpose from the beginning. He's a defender of the weak. And at that point, yeah, absolutely, it was the Jews who were being exterminated by the Nazis. And it's awful that a state founded to protect Jewish people has now been corrupted and turned into a weapon against other people. And it's not a matter of it being, oh, it's Jews are awful people and therefore this is why it's happening. No, it's because of the white supremacy underlying the foundation of Israel by places like Britain. Britain helped found Israel, which is, there you have a whole other history of colonialism and white supremacy and all of that. But so many superhero stories at the beginning of superheroes are made by Jews or people of Jewish descent, even if they don't identify as Jews. Like Stan Lee didn't identify necessarily with his Jewishness, with his Jewish heritage. But look at the superheroes that he created. And you have Kirby and Simon creating Captain America and all of these emblematic heroes of truth, justice, and humanity, and of defending people who needed defending. And certainly, superhero worlds have expanded beyond those original creators. And the stories of these superheroes have been changed and adapted in so many ways, to the point that you have, going back to the Zack Snyder version of Superman. Zack Snyder, I forget what religion he identifies with, but I think it's not the Scientologist, but the Jesus Christ scientist thing.
Oh my gosh. I know exactly. It's on the tip of my tongue.
Yeah. It's like Jesus Christ scientist.
Jew. Oh my gosh. I'm gonna look it up.
Yeah, I can't remember exactly what it's called, but
Christian Science.
Thank you, Christian Science. Yeah. It's a religion that basically the gist of it is that you're supposed to submit to a higher power. So the higher power is supposed to protect you, and you're supposed to submit to it so that it can protect you. So his Superman, and mind you, okay, I want to shout out this video that helped me put all of this into words. It's by the channel Screen Crush on YouTube, and it's called Superman versus Man of Steel. One scene that shows why one worked. Scene fights. It's in capital as the scene fights with an exclamation point. But it goes into all of this, and I really recommend that people watch it because it's a fascinating video.
I'll put the link in the show notes. So if you can just send it to me, I'll just put the link in the show notes.
You got it. And it talks about why that religion informs Zack Snyder's vision of it, and why Superman is so dark, and why that Superman is so pretty much authoritarian and so willing to put protecting his identity over the lives of humans, which is completely against everything that Superman is actually supposed to stand for. And James Gunn bringing it back to the original point of Superman, which is protecting the weak, protecting the people who need protection. And you see, and it's a line through James Gunn movies, that there is a father figure that is, it's like a bio dad who is not really a good person, who comes across as like a good person, but the more you get to know him, the more you realize he really wants to, take over in some way. And you see it in Guardians of the Galaxy with a character that Kurt Russell plays. And then the parallel here being Kal-El's parents, in the message that they leave, and contrast that with the father figures that these characters have, where Star-Lord has that guy who was like the mercenary type, gun runner, scary guy who ends up being like the most loving dad that Star-Lord could have had. And here you have Jonathan Kent, who was very loving and who instilled, he and Martha instilled a love for humanity in Clark. And that, that gets into the whole nature-nurture thing. But the reason why it's still discussed, the nature-nurture thing, is because nurture is very important. How you raise your kids informs a lot. And if you raise them to believe that humanity is sacred and that it should be protected, and that if you have the power to protect it, that you should do everything in that power to do so. Lex Luthor, I don't know how he was raised, but clearly he wasn't raised to believe that. He is of a capitalistic extermination-y mindset, where if somebody is in the way of my greatness, I'm going to get rid of them. And my greatness is determined by my whiteness or proximity to whiteness. Whereas Clark Kent is brought up to believe that every life is valuable, which is why he saves a squirrel in the middle of this huge fight where he really could have not cared. And, as an aside, when the people are running for shelter in the movie, you see a lot of people carrying pets because James Gunn wants to make it clear that like every life is sacred. But going back to Clark Kent, it's important to remember that Clark Kent is not Superman's disguise. Superman is Clark Kent's disguise. That's the important thing. Yes, he is an alien. Yes, he is from a different planet. Yes, he's not from here, but he is of here. And you don't have to be from a place or of a people to care about the people. And that extends to all of us. We don't have to be Palestinians to care about Palestinians. We don't have to be, Sudanese to care about the people in Sudan. We don't have to care. We don't have to be from the Congo to care about the people of Congo. All of these people deserve our love and our protection and everything that we can do to bring attention to what they're going through and to help overthrow the things that are oppressing them. We should do. And again, us little human beings, we don't have the power that these heads of state have, but we do have things that we can do. We can put pressure on our elected people. We can protest, we can march, we can donate. Are you doing that? Are you doing any of that? Or are you just sitting back and waiting for somebody else to do it? Because this thing of like Mr. Rogers of like, look for the helpers. You're the adult now. You're the helper. So help. Yeah.
Thank you, Carla, for all of that. Yeah. And if you're looking for easy ways and you're not sure where to begin, you can always text resist bot. I'll put like the quick thing. It's just basically, it's like a bot. It will tell you, it'll text you all the time, all constantly with different petitions, different, stuff to contact your representatives, to where you're getting to the point where you get those emails from them constantly because, it's like a template they send out, but you'll be on that list and you'll get it all the time, where at least you're doing something. It may seem small and insignificant, but if enough people do that, it becomes big and significant because you can't ignore everybody. So if everybody is doing that, you have to look and remember, you have to listen. And remember, politicians, they work for you. You are their employee. You're their employer, excuse me. So you have a right to speak up and say, because it's not just Republicans that are helping to fund a genocide. It's also Democrats. Mm-hmm. It's all across the aisle. So it's not just one party that is helping fund a genocide. It is all parties. It is not just the right-wing Fox News personality people that are supporting a genocide. It's people that supposedly were really liberal, like awful Deborah Messing, who is a horrible human being, just flat, horrible human being, did a whole documentary. It's awful. So it's a lot of people. So she's using her voice for bad. And so I appreciate that James Gunn is using his powerful voice for good. And it is, like you said, Carla, so important that the message is so blatant, because the audience that is going to see this, it's better that everybody gets that message blatantly instead of in a very subtle way where you could easily say, well, that's not really what he meant to say. You cannot say that he's not talking about the genocide of the Palestinians. There's no way you could say that's not what he's talking about. I mean, there's just like absolutely no way you could logically say that that isn't what he's talking about. You just can't, because it's very clear that's what he's doing. And I always say, if you have a voice and you have that power and you have a huge platform, and what bigger platform than a superhero movie, then you should use that for this. And especially for kids to get that message. Kids are not too young to get this message. And it also can, I think, incite conversations within families, within schools. And we're in a very dangerous time where we are going to start losing the opportunities to use art and use this medium to talk about important issues. And so while we still have that opportunity, and we have to fight to keep that opportunity, and while we still have it, we need to use it for that. So that's why I think it's important. I can't say anything much better than Carla did. Really, Carla, that was fantastic. So thank you. That was what I thought was the most significant part of this movie, was the fact that, and I honestly was like, okay, I know the Avengers movies are supposed to be saying stuff too, but I don't know. To me, it felt so much more honest in this movie, and also talking about the way that the United States talks about immigrants was another important part of this. And Superman's whole last monologue to Lex Luthor was so important. And I don't know, I honestly can't think of another big, huge superhero movie in present day that is talking so blatantly about about a very important issue, and talking about a genocide. I really honestly can't think of one. Maybe I'm forgetting one. I don't really consider, I don't think the Avengers was talking about that. So,
right.
I mean, so yeah. And also the actor who plays Superman is Jewish. And I do think that's important too.
Yeah.
So as well. Anyway, so yeah, it is important if you have that voice, if you have that platform, to use it. It's important to, like I said, call your representatives, write your representatives. If you don't know how to go about doing that, like I said, you can use the Resist bot. And the reason I say it's so easy to use, because it really, really, honestly, I swear to you, it is so flippin' easy to use. It's like you just say a word and it'll constantly text you throughout the day, like, hey, there's this new issue, everything from, there's so much going on. And so it helps you, go to every single issue, like stupid Robert Kennedy, that whole RFK Jr. stuff, and how, oh my God, that's so horrible. And PBS and everything like that. And all those issues, there's so much going on. And it's so easy to get so overwhelmed that you feel like, well, there's too much. I can't do anything. So starting out with those small things where you write a letter to your representative, you call their office, and no, 99.99% of the time, you're not going to talk to a person. You're going to be leaving a message. But it's that fact of calling. If you're seeing people doing horrendous things and it's a horrendous thing, but you're not even saying a word about it, that sends a message that, you're part of the bigger issue of people not caring. So do what you can. And I know we all can't do the huge stuff. We can't, it's not feasible for us to save every single person, but we do have an obligation to speak out. And to also remember, please stop saying, this is not America and United States, because it is. This is our history. This is why we're here, because we never fucking learn our history and we never fucking care. We don't want to hear that. And we are living in a time where with the current administration, that history is going to be stripped even further because that's what they're doing with education, with removing PBS and now having this other fucking stuff, teaching kids that they want to put in schools, with stripping the Smithsonian from showing our actual history. Our history is not beautiful. Our history is filled with us being the perpetrators of genocides. That is our history, and we have to know that, because if we don't know that, that's how we end up here. That's why we're here. That's why when people say, oh gosh, if only we had a Bush in office, they were the exact same person as Trump. They're exactly the same. It's just they played the political game better. They got you to believe they were human beings with empathy and compassion, and they weren't. Ronald Reagan, every problem, most of the problems we have in this country, a lot of them, like a lot of the current ones, can be traced back to Ronald Reagan and his wife.
Yes.
I mean, that's why. I mean, our student debt crisis, our homelessness crisis, or unhoused crisis, our mental health care crisis, all the people that died from AIDS and HIV, that's all linked back to that person who's burning in hell right now. And we can't sit there and be like, well, this is just like some anomaly that has happened. And if we only had the good old days, these people want the good old days. Duh. That's what they've been saying since fucking day one. What do you think Make America Great Again? What do you think that's about? Because they want to go back to a time when it was only great for certain people, not for the majority. So please, let's stop that. That gets us nowhere. That gets us to where we are now. And I know that for a lot of my fellow white people, a lot of us white people, we had that reaction the first time Trump was elected of like, oh my God, I can't believe this happened. When really that should be the wake up call to go, no, this isn't unbelievable that this happened. This happened because we have never learned from the people that we had before. We just have never learned from that. And I'm not saying Democrats are great, because they aren't. Bill Clinton is a piece of shit. I am not at all saying that. I loved Obama, but Obama did a lot of awful things. I'm not a big fan of Joe Biden. There's a lot of these leaders that were not necessarily great and wonderful on both sides of the aisle, but we need to stop trying to romanticize these Republicans just because we've got a Republican that in everybody thinks is worse, when really he is just a puppet in this whole bigger, huge play. But yes, keep using your voice to speak out, and thank you, James Gunn, for doing what everybody should be doing. I mean, it's kind of like, I don't want to applaud you too much and put you in too much of a pedestal, but I do want to say it does take courage, really, because you could totally lose your career.
Yes.
And I know a lot more people are speaking out now, but it still takes courage to do it, because you could lose everything. And if this movie had not been successful, you could have seen him maybe be talked about as a has-been or something like that. And you also know you're doing something right when Ben Shapiro does a whole episode. I didn't listen to it or anything, but I heard that he did a whole episode talking about how horrible this movie is. So
yeah, naturally.
Yeah. Okay. So Carla, you had one other thing to add. Sorry, I just saw your note. Sorry.
No, it's okay. I just wanted to clarify, because, I think that I was clear, but in case anybody is misinterpreting what I said, this is not on the Jewish people. This is on the Israeli state. And the Israeli state was founded very largely by European white entities with the support of the United States and American weapons. So this is not about Jews versus Palestinians. This is about the Israeli state versus Palestinians. you should look up Jewish Voices for Peace. You should look up Bend the Arc. These are great organizations that are constantly talking about why what's happening in Gaza is a genocide and why there's a whole movement called Not in My Name, where these are Jewish people who are saying, don't do this as like a pro, like I'm supporting the Jews by supporting Israel, because that's not synonymous. It's not a one-to-one. This is also why there are so many Jews, not just in the United States, but in other places outside of Israel, who there's a thing called like the birthright trip, where at 13 for your bar bat mitzvah, you're allowed to go, you pretty much go to Israel pretty much for free, because, and you have, automatic Israeli citizenship because you're a Jew and all of that. There are so many Jews outside of Israel who choose not to do that, who choose not to even visit Israel because of what the Israeli state has done. And this is well before October 7th. So I don't want anybody bending my words as a support of anti-Semitism, because that is absolutely, absolutely incorrect.
Yes. Thank you, Carla, for adding that. Yes, exactly. Because it's not.
It's not.
Yeah. And, if you ever get a chance to just listen to any of Inigo Montoya, blah, blah, blah.
Oh, Mandy Patinkin.
Thank you. And his amazing wife and son, and just, there's an amazing TikTok video of him speaking very impassioned about this. And so I really encourage you to listen to that. And yes, and follow all the accounts that Carla has mentioned. I will put some links in the show notes too for people. So thank you for adding that, Carla. I did want to end, though, on the fun note of 6 Degrees of Finn. We have a couple of minutes. So if we did it, we can end with that, because I really loved this discussion. I do want to say that. So thank you, Carla. I'm glad we got to do this episode that was not planned. So I'm really glad we got to do it, frankly. So thank you.
Right?
Yeah. So thank you. So did you play 6 Degrees?
Of course I did.
Okay.
I always, every single time that you ask me.
You spent hours.
I spent hours just digging through my brain without looking up anything ever. Just me in my little head. And I chose an actor that you're going to hate, but that's okay. The reason I chose him is because I think it's hilarious that I'm choosing him. I'm amusing myself by choosing him, so that's good enough for me. I'm choosing Nathan Fillion, whom we both dislike. He wasn't in Cars 3 because it's an animated movie, so his voice was in Cars 3 with Isaiah Whitlock Jr., no relation to Whitrock, who was in 12 with Finn Whitrock, in case you're confused by the W's and the rocks and the ox. No relation. But yes, that is what my brain came up with no help of any website.
After 12 hours.
After 12 hours.
I need to do a compilation of these recently and just do a huge, like, I haven't done one of those, a video of all of these. So I used Rachel Brosnahan, who was in I'm Obsessed with You, but You've Got to Leave Me Alone. Story of my life. No.
Yeah, I know that's what you say to Taye Diggs all the time.
Don't bring that man up with me, man. The account Jezebel can follow us back on Instagram, but Taye Diggs can't follow me back on Twitter. It's been years, man. Years. I was so geeking out when I saw that the official Jezebel account followed us. I was like,
that is really cool.
I'm so glad they followed us pretty quickly after I'd reshared something they posted. I can't remember what actor they were dragging now, but I'd reposted. Now that you can do that on Instagram. And then I got that notification. I'm like, is this really them? And I looked and I was like, oh, it's the check mark. It's the real official
so
one.
Cool.
I'm like, that's awesome. But Taye Diggs, one day, you and I, can you imagine I get an interview request? Would you interview Taye Diggs? I so want this to happen.
He'll either just stare you down or he will beg for your forgiveness. It can only be one of those two things. I heard what you said about being the equilibrium episode.
Yeah. Final question. Tay Diggs, explain yourself. Anyway, so Rachel Brosnahan was in that movie that I mentioned with Thomas McDonnell, who was also in the movie that Carla used, 12.
Along with a person who is not related to Finn Whitrock?
Yeah. With Mr. Finn Whitrock. So thank you, Carla, for spending hours coming up with that. And thank you for bringing up Tay Diggs again. God, I was like close to almost over that.
I just want to remind you, because if I'm not, so that I'm not the only person holding grudges.
Yeah, that grudge is never going away. Even if he follows me, I was still.
You're going to soft block him.
Yeah. Yep.
I don't want you here anyway.
But thank you, Carla. I really appreciate it. I think this was a really, really good conversation. I'm glad we got to cover this because it wasn't planned. And sometimes that leads to really happy accidents. So thank you so much for joining me. So if you want to tell everybody where they can find your podcast, okay, real quick.
I would love nothing more. Okay, real quick can be found wherever you found this podcast. One of my favorite episodes that I just did, I covered the very important subject of shipping Zach Morris and Lisa Turtle from Saved by the Bell. And it's one of my favorite episodes that I've done so far. There are other episodes too that you can listen to if you don't care about Saved by the Bell. And you can also look for our social media presence at various social media places at Okay Real Quick Pod, etc. And don't put etc. because then you won't find us. You can find me and my art and my musings at Carla Temis, also no etc. there, or my website, carlatemis.com. That's CarlaTemis.com.
Awesome. Thank you. And Fergie the dog would probably like Crypto the dog, although she'd be like, I'm a little better than you. But you can follow her on TikTok at Schroeder and Fergs. That's SCHROEDERANDFERGS. It's long, but it's worth it. To find all our past episodes, links to our social media, links to our Discord channel, links to our Patreon page, go to our website. It's fandomthingpod.com. And while you're there, if you want to become a Patreon supporter for as little as $3 a month, you can get great bonus content. You can get ad-free episodes. You get episodes a day early. You occasionally can win prizes. Click on the Support Us tab on our website. And once again, it's fandomthingpod.com, or click the link in the show notes. Next week, we are kicking off Music Month with a look at Nirvana. And the rest of Music Month will consist of Soundgarden, Alice in Chains, and Pearl Jam. Yes, it is Grunge Month. This was voted on by the listeners. I will give you a heads up. I'm not a grunge person, so this has been a very interesting journey for me. But I have great people joining me. I am actually very, very excited about this. And people love our music episodes. I have a feeling these are going to do well. My camera's having a hard time focusing because I'm moving around too much. But so we're going to have, Carla's going to be on quite a few. Sarah's going to be on quite a few. Next week, we will have Ryan from Soundtrack Your Life, and then also Ashley Styles from Wizard Radio. We are also going to be having Adrian from Talking Like a Teen podcast is going to be back. Yeah, and I think that's it for who are going to be joining us on some of those episodes. So until next time, remember, it's a fandom thing. Black Lives Matter, stop Asian hate, and free Palestine.